Hi everyone, this is my case study for class EDL 851, A Good Teacher Turns Bad, Stress at Home, Creating Problems at the School. I went ahead and put together my summary of the situation, given the information in the article. Of course, being the principal, Mrs. Wilson is dealing with parental complaints about a veteran teacher. Her name is Mrs. Horton. Those complaints come after being 3 years, basically 3 years involved with the school. And Mrs. Horton, the veteran teacher who has been passed District Teacher of the Year, is dealing with a trauma situation at home. Her husband has left and feeling the stresses of that. She seems to be disengaged, angry, and at times volatile towards the staff and maybe even students, given the information in the reading. She does not seem to be meeting the expectations of the classroom, nor completing the necessary responsibilities of her profession, being behind in getting information organized to meet with a parent, being upset about changes, potential changes in the curriculum and things like that. So to me, in this summary, her professionalism is being questioned, as well as her ethics in the classroom. And of course, after dealing with a parental concern, the situation to me has escalated to direct involvement as an administrator. So problem identification to me is that Mrs. Horton has been involved in a trauma situation. Her classroom behavior is unprofessional, questionable, given the information that I have received. The parents are concerned, staff members are being affected, board members have even been talked to, and of course students are reporting that they are scared or afraid and do not feel appreciated in the classroom. Those to me seem to be some of the biggest problems that need to be addressed. And on my priority list of things that I would have to encounter for the week or even the month, if it was myself as Mrs. Wilson, those to me would be priority. Our plan of action from here should be to address Mrs. Horton's unprofessional response to Mr. Stafford immediately. The way she responded to him was inappropriate and not professional, so I would deal with that immediately. Following that, I would schedule a time for Mrs. Horton to meet with me regarding concerns that have come up and continue to come up about her and her ineffectiveness in the classroom as it appears to be, and that would need to be done immediately. I would then begin to do walkthroughs daily into her room to make observations and gather data to see what it is for myself that I feel is putting our students maybe at risk or my staff member at risk. Kind of do more hands-on supervision for her and what's going on in her classroom. The next thing I would do is offer support to her through relationships, maybe with other staff members she connects well with or relates well with. I'd find her resources in helping her deal with her home situation and not bringing that into the classroom. And of course, some references that can help her deal with the situation as I perceive it to be. I would want to be a pair of listening ears. I would want to make sure that I could give her empathy as well as sympathy into what's going on with her. I would also make sure that relationship piece that I discussed was also happening with my students, that they could find another adult, even if it wasn't Mrs. Horton in that classroom, that they could feel connected to. I would continue on my plan of action with support on mental health healing, not just for Mrs. Horton, but maybe even for my whole staff. It seems that social emotional needs are of a high interest as well as a high need for our students in today's society. So mental health healing training would be something that I would work towards. Looking into our contractual agreement, I'd see what mental health days off were available to her on our day. On our leave days or professional days. See if that was even an option, mental health days. And might involve some co-teaching opportunities to allow another teacher to maybe take some of that workload from Mrs. Horton, as well as to build those relationships. And of course, I would offer breaks as needed. If she needs to step away, I need to be able to step in as the administrator. Teach 20 minutes, 30 minutes, so she can, take some deep breathing opportunities and step away to be able to step back in and help her through this difficult time that she has outside of school. I would then visit with Mr. Stafford regarding that meeting, as well as his parental concerns, hoping to reassure and ensure that he knows that his daughter's best interest is at my heart and the heart of the schools, and that we will do what we can to make this situation better for everybody involved. I would, of course, then communicate with the superintendent and board members as needed, because they have been brought into this situation. So I would implement some professional development, PD training for Mrs. Horton, as well as other teachers who are interested, whether that be yoga exercises or deep breathing, or opportunity to go for a day and learn about trauma. That would be a great implementation. I would go ahead and implement walkthroughs to be more in touch with the daily interactions of her classroom. I'd look into her evaluations in the past 5 years to see if there's any other trends or any other reoccurring issues that Mrs. Horton had been dealing with. And again, I would implement another meeting with Mrs. Horton and Mr. Stafford to see if we can resolve the way that last one ended. From our implementation, I hope to resolve this situation with looking what's best for my students by providing training to my teachers, more involvement of me and other staff members in that classroom. I would want to not move students from her room, because I do not think that sets them up for success, but I'd want to make sure that I was finding other opportunities for them to feel success, as well as feel nurtured in our environment. I would look into our school's evaluation process to see if it needed to be reevaluated, or if I needed to make some changes. If we're on a 3-year cycle and I need to be seeing teachers more often, or if they need to be able to reflect more often, I need to look into that and see what I can do to resolve this situation. I was reading through this surprised at her response. We're definitely noticing her feelings becoming dictators instead of indicators. And so I was surprised. I did have sympathy for her personal needs as well as towards my students. I was disappointed in my lack of professional development or even supervision into her classroom, knowing from the information that I read that there were signs 6 months ago before the summer break. I don't know. I feel like I'm a little disappointed in myself or the supervision of that maybe some other things could have been put in place before it became this situation. I do value Mrs. Horton's past successes, her effectiveness with students prior, as well as the information from the evaluations that I'm sure I would have gained looking through her last 5 years. I feel like this could be managed and corrected through relationship building, through support, reassurance, and opportunities for everybody to learn not just about the content that has to happen in our classroom, but the connections and the relationships that must belong there too. So some of the things I'm still concerned about would be that Mrs. Horton still has that trauma. She still has that stress at home, and I can't control that, and I wouldn't be able to fix that immediately. So that still remains an issue. The students' lack of trust on her remains an issue. The parents questioning her will still remain an issue. I would have to say that another concern that I have that hasn't been fixed, or would be a bigger fix, would be the evaluations needing to be done more often. These things don't change quickly or over time. It's going to take time to rebuild those relationships and trust, and it's going to take me taking time, which we all know as educators we don't have a lot of. It's going to take me some time to get into her room, to increase my presence as well as my support, or even other staff members' support in Mrs. Horton's classroom to help her through this tough time. So to promote success, I would first address the professionalism. I'd involve myself in the classroom more. I'd want to make sure that professional development training was in place. And of course, to get academic success, we have to build those base relationship connections. We've got to have positive reinforcement, because if the kids aren't feeling their basic needs of love and care aren't being met, they're going to have a hard time being successful in the classroom academically. So to do that, and to make sure every student was being successful, I would implement those walkthroughs. I would support her through relationship and relationship training, and I communicate with the parents through encouragement, as well as reinforcement that our school is a safe place, it's a wonderful place to be, and that all of our students' academic success is at the forefront of all of our efforts. With those walkthroughs, to promote well-being, we'd have counseling lessons or character ed lessons for our students. Maybe look into co-teaching so that 2 adults are involved and invested in each one of our kids' lives. Giving the kids even time to recharge, refocus, and reflect would be a wonderful opportunity. Our current school is adding in yoga lessons twice a month for our kiddos to be able to recharge and refocus, because personal well-being is important. I would then, of course, want to make sure the well-being of my students is being met at home, keeping that parent home and home parent with teacher connection open. To enhance instructional quality, I think professional development is a place that the principal in the case study, as well as myself, would want to spend some time being involved with and making decisions on evaluation to instruct our quality, maybe quality instruction to go back to our evaluations and say, okay, is this really effective? Is this really helping her reflect, or any other teacher reflect for that matter, on what they're doing in the classroom and how they can actually make a difference through their instruction. Co-teaching methods, I think, would help in this situation, at least for time, so if she needs to step away for that break, there's another adult in there that can add in their time, whether that's a teacher or an aide, because through the case study they did have availability to aides. So I would say that not only on the things listed on the PowerPoint, not listed as listed on our program here, I think it's very important that we hit those base needs not only for our students but for our staff. Because there's a lot of situations that can begin to take over our lives and affect what we're doing with our students. Thanks.